See, the thing about reality TV is that you always thought that reality TV was a distillation of reality, that it was taking reality and then distilling it. Well, it turns out instead that you're actually living inside a giant reality TV show, that there is actually a producer in the sky, and he's created a reality TV show. You're a character and you don't even know it, because that's the only way to explain what the hell is going on now. The story over the weekend was, of course, the White House Correspondence Dinner. I hate the White House Correspondence Dinner. I think it's stupid. I think that it is self-aggrandizing. Every year I complain about it. It has been for probably 10 years running. I say that it's just ridiculous to have all of these journalists sitting there in tuxes, feeding each other and talking about how wonderful they are, and then patting each other on the back, and they have this roast. And there's one event every year that is made to order to make Americans feel as though they are out of the loop and scorned by the media elite. It is the White House Correspondence Dinner. We were actually invited to the White House Correspondence Dinner. I did not go. I really am not particularly interested in going. It doesn't look like a very fun event to be at, honestly. It's just a place for people to hobnob with each other. When they talk about Washington, D.C. cocktail parties, this is exactly the sort of thing they are talking about. Well, everything was going sort of as planned, as per the usual arrangement at the White House Correspondence Dinner. A bunch of rich people, famous people patting each other on the back and talking about how wonderful they are and making some sort of light jokes about one another. And then Michelle Wolf got up. Now, I'd never heard of this person, Michelle Wolf. Had you guys heard of Michelle Wolf before this? I'd never heard of Michelle Wolf before this. I just figured that she was some sort of Debbie Wasserman Schultz impersonator. I had no clue who she was. And she gets up. Apparently, it turns out that she's a writer for Comedy Central, which demonstrates, presumably, why Trevor Noah is deeply unfunny. I guess that this explains a lot of things. It explains Trevor Noah. It explains Samantha Bee's prior history. I don't know if she wrote for either of those shows, but if not, then she has a lot of compatriots who are just as unfunny as she is. So Michelle Wolf gets up, and she gives a 19-minute monologue. And we're not going to play for you this 19-minute monologue because I watched it, and it probably took 4 years off my life just in terms of sheer boredom. And I was just watching it, and I could feel my hair turning gray. It was like the end of Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. It's like I drunk from the wrong cup. By the end of the monologue, I'd added several gray hairs and several wrinkles to my forehead. But Michelle Wolf did this monologue, and it's been much ballyhooed. People on the left, many of them defending it. Some people on the left not defending it. People on the right, of course, very, very upset about it. I want to talk about this because I want to talk about the value of humor in Trump-era America. I want to talk about the media's response to all of this. As a precursor, let it be noted, no one made a joke about Obama for 8 years at the White House Correspondence Dinner. And it was forbidden. You were allowed to make jokes about Paul Ryan, about Mitch McConnell, about Mitt Romney, about John McCain. You were allowed to make jokes about a bunch of foreign leaders. You were not allowed to make jokes that were serious about Barack Obama. And this is why Seth Meyers and crew were making these. It was great. I mean, if you're a Republican president, you could be attacked when you were the president, like Bush, or you could be attacked when you were not the president, like Bush, when Obama was president. So the White House Correspondence Dinner has always become a roast of the right, which, of course, has justified the right wing's hatred of the media. One of the great lies the media have put out over the past several years is that President Trump is the one who ginned up all of this dislike of the media. That's utter nonsense. As I said at CPAC, we hated you guys before. We thought you guys sucked. We thought that you were bad at your job. We thought that you were not objective and you were pretending to be objective. We thought that you were wildly left-wing. So it's not a shock, really, that Michelle Wolf was up there ripping into President Trump. But it was the level of vitriol that she used. It was the crazy level of vitriol that she used that got people really upset, particularly her rip on Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So Trump declined to go, but a bunch of members of the White House were there. So Kellyanne Conway went. I don't know why, if you're Kellyanne Conway, you would go. Sarah Huckabee Sanders went. I don't know why, if you're Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you would go. You know you're going to go there. You know you're going to get roasted. And Michelle Wolf certainly roasted Sarah Huckabee Sanders, again, in quite unfunny fashion. And, you know, there are a lot of folks out there who say that I have an annoying voice. Folks, you have not heard annoying until you've heard this voice. So here's Michelle Wolf going off on Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
I have to say I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women? Oh, I know, Aunt Coulter.
Okay, so number one, was any of that funny? Like, if you're on the left, do you find that funny? Maybe we just have wildly different senses of humor, but I didn't find any of that funny. Like, I will laugh if there's a good anti-Trump joke because a good joke is a good joke, but that's not a good joke. Now, a lot of people were getting on Wolf for supposedly ripping on Huckabee Sanders' looks. I'm not hearing her rip on Huckabee Sanders' looks right there, actually. I didn't actually hear the evidence that she's ripping on Sarah Huckabee Sanders' looks. She makes a reference about smoky eye. She makes a reference about Aunt Lydia from The Handmaid's Tale, which I believe is more of a rip on Huckabee Sanders' character. I mean, this is where we've come in American society. You're allowed to say that a woman wants other women to be raped for purposes of impregnation, which is actually the role of Aunt Lydia in The Handmaid's Tale. In The Handmaid's Tale, Aunt Lydia is the woman who oversees all of the women who are raped, forcibly consummated by men, and then are forced to bear their children. And so that seems to me that would be more of an insult than that she's ugly. But that's not. But people didn't take it that way. You're not allowed to attack Sarah Huckabee Sanders on these grounds because presumably there was some sort of covert joke there about Aunt Lydia being played by a not very attractive woman in the series, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders looks like that woman. Again, I'm not hearing the evidence that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was ripped on account of her looks. I am hearing a lot of very mean and stupid jokes about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but I'm not sure that it's that much wildly beyond the pale of anything else Michelle Wolf said. Like, for example, I think her rip on Mike Pence was just as bad as her rip on Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Here's what she said about Mike Pence.
A lot of people want Trump to be impeached. I do not. Because just when you think Trump is awful, you remember Mike Pence. Mike Pence is what happens when Anderson Cooper isn't gay. Mike Pence is the kind of guy that brushes his teeth and then drinks orange juice and thinks,
I don't even know what that means about the orange juice and the toothbrushing. Like, does he have no taste buds? What exactly is the idea there? In any case, again, making the Handmaid's Tale reference about Mike Pence, she would do that several times throughout the evening. And it's just, again, I think bad comedy. I don't think this is wildly egregious. Here's what I do think was wildly egregious. So here is the point where she is demonstrative of what the left thinks, right? You can hear the entire crowd laughing at all of this, laughing along. Mike Pence is just terrible. Sarah Huckabee Sanders burns facts. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Right? And everybody in the audience who's laughing, understand that you just undermined your credibility for the next 10 years with the entire right-wing audience. You guys are trying to prove that Trump hates the media because he's disrespectful of the truth. Well, you guys are disrespectful of a very basic truth. You are biased. You are left-wing. You think these jokes are funny? You have to be left-wing to think these jokes are funny, or brain damaged. Those are the only two possibilities, because the jokes are not funny, number one. And number two, they're all very much left-wing jokes. And it'll be funny because you'll hear at the end, Michelle Wolf makes a couple of jokes. She actually lectures the members of the media, and they do not take it well. But here's the joke that got a laugh from some members of the media that just demonstrates full scale where the media's heads are at, the level of bias in the media. It's pretty astonishing. This is the one that should have shook the room, right? This is the joke that people should have been upset about, not the stuff about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Look, I understand we live in the Me Too moment, and we're supposed to have female solidarity, and if there's any sort of implication that a woman is attacking another woman, that's really terrible, and all of this. Here's the joke that I was offended by, okay? Because it turns out I like babies, okay? I think babies are good. Here is the joke that I was offended by. Here's Michelle Wolf telling an abortion joke, I guess that's what this is, and it does demonstrate, I think, full scale what folks on the left think about abortion, which is pretty unfortunate.
Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which, first of all, don't knock it till you try it. And when you do try it, really knock it. You got to get that baby out of there. And yeah, sure, you can groan all you want. I know a lot of you are very anti-abortion, unless it's the one you got for your secret mistress. It's fun how values can waver.
And look at the expressions of the media there. Oh, the smiles. Oh, isn't she charming? Oh. So she basically, yeah, it's a baby. It's not murder, but it's a baby. You should really hit it hard till it comes out of there. And also, you all bought abortions for your mistresses, so now it's moral. Okay, the disrespect for human life there, I think, is a lot more deeply troubling from the left than the disrespect for Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Again, do I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders has a right to be mad? Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a roast. Right? If it were a roast, Sarah Huckabee Sanders would get up there and respond. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders is sitting there, and I think stolidly taking it, and Kellyanne Conway doing the same thing. But that joke is the one that I think is really amazing. And again, you have to be not only on the left, but I think relatively inhuman to think that that is a funny joke. And don't knock abortion until you try it. And if you do try it, really knock it, because you got to get that baby out of there. Wow, just hilarious stuff. Now, there was one joke that did fall flat for Michelle Wolf among the people in the audience, and that was her rip on the media. So in just a second, I'm going to play that for you, because this actually, finally, Michelle Wolf tells a joke that the media don't like. So the media like the jokes about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They liked a bunch of jokes about Mike Pence. She did a really ridiculous routine where she just talked about how Trump is not all that wealthy, which I think is probably true. I don't think Trump is as wealthy as he says he is, but she actually started telling a series of jokes saying, Donald Trump isn't as wealthy as he thinks he is. He's so poor that, and then she'd have the audience say, how poor is he? And then she'd give a little joke at the end. In any case, here was the only thing the media did not laugh at. Her rip at the media, which is the only true thing she said the entire night. So here's Michelle Wolf, again, at the White House Correspondence Dinner.
We've got our friends at CNN here. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you. You guys love breaking news, and you did it. You broke it. Good work. Fox News is here, so you know what that means, ladies. Cover your drinks. Seriously.
Okay, but then she went on to rip into the media. She suggested that the media had made a bunch of money off of Trump and that they had promoted him for their own pocketbook, which I think is certainly true. Jeff Zucker has essentially said as much. Les Moonves at CBS said as much. It's not a great shock. Okay, so after all of this happened, people started to go nuts. So the White House got very upset at Michelle Wolf. They said, how could Michelle Wolf say all of these things? So let it be known, number one, Michelle Wolf is a comedian. She can say any of these things. Should the White House Correspondence Dinner have had her? No, it obviously did not fit with the tenor of the actual dinner. It did not do what they wanted it to do. It did not forward their agenda in any real way. In fact, it was pretty counterproductive to their agenda. So the real blame here, I don't think even lies with Michelle Wolf, who is, I will admit, I think a really galling piece of work. But it's the White House Correspondence Dinner that decided to have her. So it's on the journalists who organized this thing, not on Michelle Wolf. Michelle Wolf was just being Michelle Wolf. At the White House Correspondence Dinner, they're the people who invited her. Well, White House officials were slamming Michelle Wolf. They said that she was incredibly disrespectful. Again, I think she was gross. I think she was disrespectful. I think that there is something weird about the White House complaining about people being gross and disrespectful when President Trump spent the entire 2016 campaign ripping into every one of his opponents as ugly and stupid. But in any case, here is Ed Henry talking about it.
What happened to Sarah Sanders last night was disgusting, and I say that as a former president of the White House Correspondents Association. By the briefing tomorrow, I hope that the White House Correspondents Association, which I'm a card-carrying paid member of still, you guys should put out at least a statement, an apology to Sarah Sanders, who you work with professionally to go after her physical appearance, to say some of the things that happened. It obviously is so far beyond the line that I hope and pray the association apologizes to Sarah Sanders.
So, I'm going to try and be fair-minded about this. I don't think that Sarah Huckabee Sanders' physical appearance was clearly attacked. I think that everyone took all of the lines as an attack on her physical appearance, but I'm not sure that that's actually what happened. I think there are a lot of awful things Michelle Wolf said that are just as bad and worse about other people. But we're going to talk about the media's response to all of this in just a second, because as I say, the White House responding by claiming offense, I think, is a little bit snowflakey. But I think that the media's response, by the same token, is just as snowflakey in a different way. So here's what I mean. So the way that the left responded to the White House criticizing Michelle Wolf was by saying Michelle Wolf was some sort of great hero. There's a whole article over at Whcda.com talking about how Michelle Wolf spoke truth to power. Michelle Wolf did not speak truth to power. Michelle Wolf just made herself a quick buck. Michelle Wolf knows Stephen Colbert made his name at the White House Correspondence Dinner in 2005 when he went out of his way to bash President Bush, and now the dude has David Letterman's show. And so she knows that 10 years from now, she's going to be sitting pretty on some late night show because she had this speak truth to power moment. So the person who took the least risk in the room, actually, was Michelle Wolf, because we're all talking about Michelle Wolf on Monday. So she did just fine. But speaking of hypocrites, again, I think it's hypocrisy for the White House to complain about people being mean to Trump and his associates. You know, Trump himself has been quite mean about an enormous number of people. He called Ted Cruz's wife ugly in the middle of the campaign. He said that Megyn Kelly was bleeding from her whatever. Like, we don't have to go through the entire campaign again, but the thing about President Trump that I think is interesting is that the guy can give it, but he can also take it, right? When Trump gets hit with a lot of these insults, he sort of smiles and he takes it. Well, I think the White House should probably do the same here, but here's what the media can't do. The media demonstrates hypocrisy of its own when they don't condemn Michelle Wolf, because they say it's terrible what Trump says. Okay, well, if it's terrible what Trump says, you don't get to do it back to him, do you? Right? There's no whataboutism here. You don't get to say Trump is awful for saying all of these things, but Michelle Wolf is so brave for saying all of these same sorts of things about members of the Trump administration. Well, Donna Brazile, the former head of the DNC, that's exactly what she does. She defends Michelle Wolf, and she says, well, listen, it's okay for Michelle Wolf to do it because obviously Trump says gross things too.
But remember, we have no norms now. This is a president who has criticized women, who have called reporters some disgusting things. I don't know if there are any more lines anymore.
That's not fair.
That being said, look, come on, this president has said some raunchy things.
We're talking about the comedian who was not the president.
Yeah, but Frank, The president at times says things, and then he says, well, I'm just joking. Look, I'm not defending her. I would use fresh material, okay?
Okay, but here's the problem is that you are defending her because you're saying Trump is so awful for doing X. Why don't we do X also? I hate this kind of logic when it comes from the right. I hate this kind of logic when it comes from the left. Right now, it's coming from the left. Kathy Griffin, of course, who traffics in exactly this sort of nonsense, she said the same thing. She tweeted out, quote, I have some thoughts on Michelle Wolf's act and the reaction to it from members of the press and other D.C. insiders. For the record, I was in the room last night. Michelle Wolf's set was great. She was hilarious and confident. I like how confident is now like a descriptor for a comedian. Why is it I don't understand why that's some sort of laudatory thing, that you're confident. Yeah, a lot of people are confident. The question is whether they're good at their job. Anyway, Kathy Griffin continues, the woman famous for holding up a severed head model of President Trump. The calls for the White House Correspondence Association and Michelle Wolf to apologize are absurd. They're coming from reporters and many Trumpers. Trump himself has famously never apologized because he thinks it makes him look weak. And then she concludes by saying, so journalists are willing to demand that a comic hired to roast people apologize, but they aren't willing to demand that Trump or his staff apologize to people? Is that where we're at now? Can someone explain the difference to me? Well, I mean, I can explain that journalists actually did call for Trump to apologize over and over and over. He didn't do it. So your excuse is that now the left gets to do it as well? This is why I don't like the whataboutism attack on this sort of thing, because eventually you just end up in the pit. And eventually everybody's just slapping each other in the mud. And then if you say, well, that's gross, they say, well, yeah, but you do it too.